Iran is very busy financing Hezbollah and Hamas and the various terrorist groups that they fund with Syria to go in and try to, you heard what the new president
he's a nut. All right, but I don't know, you could make a case that Iran...
They said Hitler was a nut.
I would have, and they should have stopped him in the Rhine. Now, Saddam, no WMDs. How was sort of Saddam a direct threat to the USA if he didn't have these weapons of mass destruction?
Well, here's a regime, a man and a regime that had weapons of mass destruction, had used them on their own people, had used them on their neighbors, had invaded Kuwait, and was shooting at our airplanes in Operation Northern Watch and Southern Watch. Were enforcing the UN resolutions. They were giving $25,000 to the families of suicide bombers, encouraging terrorism. Now, as the president said recently, we have not found the weapons of mass destruction. But that was a mistake we couldn't make. You could not be mistaken on that.
But we did make it.
Better off because we did.
Okay, that's a debatable point. But without the weapons of mass destruction, did he threaten my family, Saddam?
Oh my goodness, they were shooting at our airplanes every week. And he was giving the $25,000 to the families of suicide bombers.
In Israel.
And he was wherever. It wasn't just in Israel.
So you think that Saddam directly threatened you?
Zarqawi was in Iraq during that period.
How come you don't make that point more? How come President Bush doesn't make that point? They say, well, there's no al-Qaeda Saddam connection, and Zarqawi got treated in the Baghdad hospital, is up with Ansar al-Islam in the northern part of the country. Why don't you guys say that more?
You mean why don't people carry it?
No, why don't you go out and say, look, the people trying to undermine our position here, which is the American press, there is a link. Zarqawi was in Baghdad.
Certainly a link to terrorists.
But why don't you say it?
Zarqawi at the time was not an al-Qaeda.
Why don't you say it?
Well,